Hello and welcome to this episode of the Road to Reckley podcast. I'm Callum, and today we're going to be talking about the Inside the NHL Faceoff documentary, as well as covering off the Jets and my hockey progress. Okay, so it's been another week. They are rolling by at a rate of knots, actually. We're starting to get into the point of the year where it's dark when I wake up, which I'm not loving, but there we go. And over the last week, I have spent a bit of time watching the Inside the NHL documentary, Faceoff, that's on Amazon Prime, because I enjoyed the first series to a point. I wanted to see what they did for the second series. Obviously, I'm a passionate hockey fan, so any sort of inside information, I can't wait to read more about it and see more of it. And because I'm a passionate hockey fan, I think it's particularly important, these kind of series, that they bring in more people, right? This is for some people, this is their first introduction to ice hockey, and so I think it's really important that it's right and does it justice. And why am I saying that? Well, because I don't want to be too negative. I don't want to be bringing it down for an entire episode, but I think it left a bit to be desired. But what I want to do really is break down the things I think that were quite nice from it, the things I enjoyed personally, and the things I was a bit disappointed by. And actually, rather than just be negative, I want to talk about some alternatives. So what I would introduce new people to hockey to. So if I wanted to get someone into this sport, what would I do? Because I'm not certain I'd be sending them a link to the Faceoff documentary, honestly. Right, so let's get into it then. I'll start with the good bits. We'll make it a bit of a shit sandwich. I'll go the things I enjoyed, the things I didn't enjoy, and then I'll bring it back with what I would share with people that I think's a better intro to hockey. So what did I enjoy? Really good episode and piece on Seth Jarvis. I think he is a really interesting character. He's not afraid to be himself. He's a big kid. And he also opens up about some topics that I think we forget, sporting, sort of athletes go through, the kind of the mental health journey stuff. And I think I've mentioned briefly on a previous episode, it's something I've been through myself. And so it's really nice to see that human side. They talk about, he talks about going through those difficult times with sort of, I guess, anxiety, depression, self-doubt, things like that. And you can just see, and I know they're going to be using clips and everything, but you can kind of see that self-depreciation piece, which is a humor tactic I rely on heavily. So it was really cool to be able to connect with someone like that over those sorts of things, because I'm not going to be connecting based on my hockey skill. But he comes across as a really personable, normal guy. I mean, he's got this massive Crosby poster on the front of his childhood home bedroom that he goes to when he goes, he goes back there for the off season. He sleeps in his, childhood home and, spends time with his family and his friends. And his friends came out to watch some games, and you see this awesome group of people get to, who have supported him, obviously, the whole of his hockey life. They get to go out to, Four Nations. They see, they shake hands with McDavid, which is pretty wild. So you get this really cool, personable story, and I think that's great. I think that's a really, really good part of this documentary, is the kind of personable stuff that Jarvis was able to bring to the fore. And for me personally, the other thing I really enjoyed was watching Crosby go to work. So, he's 37 years old. He's but you could argue his best years are technically behind him. He's not going to be getting any younger. But he puts in so much effort in the off season. It's like you see some stuff around like celebrating and stuff towards the end. And just while all that's happening, the guy is probably doing sort of 2-a-day practices for fun. He's a machine. He's an absolute machine. And I think getting a bit of insight into his mindset was really interesting too. He doesn't do stacks of interviews. I've watched a good chunk of the ones that are available. Just because I find him a really inspiring character, his leadership qualities, and his drive and motivation. And it was really motivating for me. I mean, it made me want to get up and, do more fitness work or spend some time skating, working on something, particular, because when you see someone like that and go to work, for me, that's really inspiring. So I thought it was really good. So for training perspective, And for a motivation perspective, I got a lot from just watching him put the effort in. And it made me also think about what kind of drills I need to be doing going forward. So obviously I'm in a bit of a weight loss phase first, and then a muscle build phase later, or not too far away now, I think, because I'm starting to lose some traction with the weight loss and get a bit bored. So I just got, those drills he was working on, I can go and do a bit of research and find out what else I could do, which I thought was really, really good. So unfortunately, pretty much that's where my good points end. But there are a couple of bits to take out, and if I would say I'd send people a link to the Jarvis episode, because I'm sure that'd be quite interesting. And from a personal perspective, I'd rewatch the Crosby stuff to go get fired up to do some training. Okay, I guess I'll try and rattle through this pretty quickly, because I don't want this to be just a half an hour episode of me talking shit about something that I enjoy as hockey. But I'll rattle them off. The things I didn't enjoy then, felt like there were some pretty tired stories. I mean, we went to some of the same teams, some of the same people, and we didn't add anything new. There was no development of character. I think we got the same level of insight into Florida. We got the same level of insight into Toronto. And I just felt like, those are kind of wasted episodes. If you've got such a short set of episodes, you're just thrown two away because we're talking about the same stuff again. It just, I don't know. That felt really boring, honestly. I actually struggled to get through the first episode, and also the Leafs episode, just because it felt like I'd watched it before last year. Now that being said, when I say the Florida stuff, I more meant the first episode where they're talking about Matthew and Brady Tkachuk. The actual cup winning episode, I do find that sort of stuff interesting because you get a bit of insight in behind the room of a winning team, and that's not so bad. But yeah, I mean, some of the stories were pretty tired. There wasn't a lot of ice hockey. Now, I know that documentaries ordinarily talk about these sorts of things, are behind the scenes, the drama, the people. But one of the best things about ice hockey is the sport. I am convinced it's the best sporting product in the world. It just doesn't have the same drama, the same pull, and the same gravitas, I guess, as some of the other sports. Like, you take American football is really boring. You could watch the whole thing in highlights in 10 minutes. You do not need to watch it live. And it is just genuinely utterly boring. And the fact you can take a knee and just waste 2 minutes at the end of a game means it's not real sport. But that's huge because of either the gambling piece or, fantasy football or marketing or the Super Bowl show, so it's got all of these things going on, but the sporting product itself is a pile of wank. Now, hockey's sporting product is amazing, and maybe the behind the scenes stuff is a bit less interesting. Leverage what's good. Like, watching some guys get absolutely laid out, or watching McDavid carve through a bunch of guys, or Sydney working, down low at the net with the puck, stuff like that, I think is what sells hockey. So I was a bit disappointed by the lack of actual action. The Four Nations bit was good. I think, again, could have probably done a bit more on it. It was such a pivotal point of the year for hockey. It was a bit disappointing to have that lack of... They sort of skirted around some of the political stuff that was going on at the time. A couple of mentions of how it was a bit uncomfortable that they were booing the Americans and stuff. But when you think of what was going on at the time, I think it was pretty fair. So it was a bit of a shame to lose some of the... Again, there's probably more drama and more insight that could have been pulled out from that. And it just felt like they were sort of scratching the surface and it just left me wanting more, which is really just a general theme for this, I'll be honest. Because it just... Yeah, we kind of scratched the surface of everything, really. I've made a little note here. I said, it's called Inside the NHL. It should probably be called On the Fringe of the NHL. I don't really feel like we got inside. Any moment that could have been interesting, the camera guy gets asked to leave the room, or we've got, time with Gary Bettman sat in the back of a Land Rover or whatever. That's not interesting. And there's so much stuff. Or the Rantanen piece. They could have done so much more with the Rantanen double trade. I mean, you see a bit of his character and you see how he's maybe less happy to be in Carolina and more happy to be in Dallas. And again, these kind of documentaries are going to pick clips to fit a narrative, to drive drama, rather than provide genuine insight. But there is a bit of that in there. And it just felt like all the stories were half stories, and nothing was really rounded and full and in depth. And it was 6 episodes. It covered hardly any teams. I mean, look, I'm going to be a little bit biased towards the Jets here, but record-breaking start, President's Trophy, Manitoba Miracle, like all those things were incredible moments in a year, and instead we got, like some pretty average stories from teams they've already covered. So there's so much more going on. I mean, how good would it have been to look inside the Sharks at what a rebuild looks like? Because for a lot of people who are just jumping into hockey for the first time, they're not going to understand that teams go through those kind of cycles, those windows, those competitive windows. What a great opportunity to talk about that. They made it to multiple conference finals, a cup final, and now they're dead last, but they've got some young, exciting talent. And, there's something to celebrate in that, I think. So it just felt like a lot of missed opportunities, really. For fear of rambling on, that's about it, really. I don't know. I was left wanting more. More episodes, more detail, more teams, coverage of other interesting personalities. And I know that they're going partly it's going to be working with what they've got, but they managed to get Crosby to do an interview, for Christ's sake. I mean, part of me just wonders if it feels like a summer project. Like, I mean, this is going to be a bit harsh now, but it feels like they've gone, let's chuck the bare minimum resource at this to get something out. We've already made contacts with these 12 people. Let's add 3 more. And then it felt like coasting, which I'm sure it was. I'm sure a lot of hard work went into it. And so that's maybe a little bit mean. But I'm passionate about this sport. And I feel like if this is someone's first introduction to ice hockey, they won't get into it. And that is a nice segue into a few things that I think would definitely get someone into hockey over and above this documentary. Number 1, go and watch Canada-USA, the Four Nations game. It's free on YouTube. And if you watch the first game and the finals, you will find out everything you need to know about the game of hockey. It is amazing. The atmosphere was incredible. The quality of play was incredible. It had an edge to it. It had, the best players in the world doing what they do. And I just think, for an introduction to ice hockey, the sport, to sell ice hockey, the product, that is where to go. I mean, again, they touched on Four Nations in the documentary, but just, go spend 6 hours watching both games because it's genuinely incredible hockey. And I just feel like that's such a better introduction to this sport. Another thing I'd recommend doing, going and watching live. The atmosphere in a rink is amazing. It's a nice day out. It's usually pretty affordable compared to other sports, particularly in the UK. There aren't stacks of teams, but for me personally, getting out to a game at Nottingham blew my mind, made me very passionate about hockey, and is really what's driving my I want to go and learn to skate and get better at get better at this sport and stuff like that. So obviously it had an effect on me, and that was awesome. I mean, I'm up at Bristol pretty much every weekend watching the Pitbulls, and I sit through warm-ups for an hour because I think it's exciting to watch. Okay, that probably says more about me than your average hockey fan, perhaps, but I love watching people skate. I love watching people work on techniques and trying to learn, via osmosis. But the atmosphere is great, and Bristol won 9-4 last night, so it was fun to be a part of that kind of party environment, and the music, the shouting, the spectacle of the sport in the moment, the speed. It's great. It's a really good place to be, and it's a really great way to introduce someone to a new sport. And I've done it a few times, and okay, people haven't maybe got the same level of fandom as I do out of it off the back of those trips, but they've really enjoyed it, and they've got I've been asked, are we able to go do that again sometime? I think that's really good. So yeah, go watch a game live, obviously. And as trivial as this might be, there's a couple of good ice hockey films out there. Genuinely believe that that's a better introduction to this sport than the Faceoff documentary. Things like Miracle, as an example, for me is a motivating thing. I've watched it quite a few times now, and I really enjoy it. But if you want something humorous, you've got Slapshot or Goon, and if you want a bit of insight into some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, you get an element of that. All right, it's amplified. It's It's a cartoon version of the real world. But for some people, that is a good introduction to sport, and genuinely is going to be better than watching that documentary. I just don't feel like if it was a documentary for beginners or people who are new, it's not going to pull them in. And if it's a documentary for already existing hockey fans, it's not going to give them enough. It just that I guess that if I could say one thing to summarize the documentary, it would be just that. It just felt like a miss. Right, enough whinging. Let's get onto something a little bit more exciting. Let's talk about what's happened with me personally in my hockey journey, and also the Winnipeg Jets. And we'll start with Jets, I think, because they've had a pretty good week, and I've actually been able to watch the games and enjoy them too, which is nice. So 3 games since I last recorded an episode. We had the little away stint against the Islanders and Philly, and then we had the home game last night against Nashville. I'm not going to go in depth. That's not the purpose of this podcast. I'm going to graze the surface, pull out some things that I thought were pretty cool and pretty important, things I enjoyed, and then we can dive into, so I guess, my personal hockey progress. But first, so Jets versus Islanders, I think that was on Monday, was a really good example of what happens when the Jets find their structure. You could look at the roster; it's pretty damaged at the minute. We're missing maybe our best defensive forward in Lowry, our best defensive defenseman in Sandberg. The second line has a lack of scoring talent, and we're without Perfetti, and that has highlighted, I think, a gap. Actually, admittedly he's not here, but maybe a trade deadline acquisition for a scoring winger wouldn't hurt this year. But they've found their structure. It was a low event hockey game. Again, maybe not the best one to share with someone who's new to hockey, but a fantastic result against the team that you need to punish. I mean, hey, the Islanders beat Edmonton last night. So, look, I know they're not great, but anyone can beat anyone, and you have to do the job that's in front of you, So, Comrie had a really hot start and pretty much bailed the team out for the first minute. And I think without, you never know how things are going to go, but, he concedes one of those early opportunities, then, it could be a different game, but he did a stand-up job, just keeping the Jets in it until they woke up. And after they woke up, it was just business as usual, really. Something notable, Jonathan Taves' first point, and I think he led the ice time. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, actually, because I thought that was quite an interesting stat to pick up on. Taves leading the team, or leading the forwards in ice time. And it got me thinking why. And I came up with a couple of options and a couple of thoughts. One, ultimately, he's a pretty low event defensive character, so perhaps they were just trying to, work that structure in the best way possible. I also think they're trying to give him as many reps early on in the season so he can get into a rhythm. And at the end of the day, if the game is pretty well sealed, so, they had a 2 or 3 goal lead at multiple points during the game. So if it's in that kind of position, or at least a 2 goal lead, if it's in that kind of position, why not leverage that opportunity to play a little bit more of Taves? He's probably not going to, cough up the puck and make a massive mistake. Although I did get to break down a play and with a friend of mine and have a little look at something he did, because I'm trying to learn from footage, from NHL footage, which I think is really fun, actually, and I'd love to make it a segment at some point in the future. But so he's not going to make it, an absolute hash of it. So give him the time to get up to speed. I can't remember if it's this game or Philly, but he was like 75% in the Faceoff dot at one point this week. So I'll just say that I think that's the kind of thing I would be looking to do if I were a coach. Get the guy who's rusty reps when it's safe to do so. He's a trustworthy character. So, a 2-goal lead is a pretty comfortable place to be if you've got someone like Taves on the ice. And ultimately a really good result. So, and all week, actually, good results, which you can't help but be happy with. Moving into the Philly game, exactly the same kind of game. A slightly weaker opponent. You've got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat at the end of the day. And what then elevates you is when you beat teams you're not supposed to beat. So, low event hockey, once again, really well structured game. This time from the off, which was good, thankfully. And it just felt like they were in control. And that was kind of missing maybe in the first couple of games of this year. but they're starting to find that structure. The fourth line had such a buzz in that Philly game. It was awesome to watch when a fourth line gets rolling. I think it's really cool to see. Offensive pressure, forechecking, point scoring, and just seeing that kind of energy, I guess, go into a game's cool. Now, I don't know what their matchups were like. I'm guessing it wasn't fourth on fourth, but they just seem to bring a lot of energy. And Barron's on a tear at the minute. He's just riding high. He's so confident, and like, why wouldn't you be? The guy's, in the limited ice time, playing really, really well. Now, I think you keep him in that kind of role. You keep it to limited ice time, and you allow him to be a threat in the environment he's in currently. If he's scoring points, that's being productive. I don't know if I'd change that necessarily, but he's doing really, really well. And I feel like Kepke has come in and exceeded my personal expectations. He seems pretty quick. He's a pretty aggressive skater. He is, getting up in the play. It's good to watch. Lots of forechecking, and that's what you want that fourth line to be. And then Parker Ford was in for that game, and he seemed to have a great game, which is good. I want to say a great game for a young fringe player on the fourth line. Not cocking up is a great game. Doing the right things during the game is a great game. So I was really pleased with that. And they seem to just be rolling the lines as well, which is great. So the fact that we can get all four lines on the ice, making an impact, really good, really, really good. So a lot to take from that game. And then last night, Nashville. What did that show? Well, it was, again, really good shutdown hockey. Just missing out on the shutout by like a minute, which was gutting. I felt so bad for Helly. He stood on his head. He genuinely had an absolute stormer, and you just think, they must have spent like half the game shorthanded. That's what it felt like anyway. And he was so good on the penalty kill. And they say like you want your best player to be a goalie for the penalty kill. He was so good. And when the team plays in a way that they make the shot or a shot an obvious choice, I feel like, I'm not going to say he can't be beaten, but he plays so well when he knows what's coming, when he can anticipate, when he can position himself well. And you just saw that in spades. The team, yes, you're leaving someone open. It's 5-on-4, that's going to happen. But Helly knows that's what's happening next. And so he can position himself for what's happening next. And he made a couple of good sprawling saves as well. Like, he really, really, that was the Hellebuck that I think we all knew and loved from last year. Coming back to form, which was fantastic. It was also pretty apparent that this team is, the aim at the moment is survive through these injuries. But they are actually seemingly doing quite well on the opportunities they're given. So, the shooting percentage is a bit high. Yes, the 5-on-5 zone pressure is not in a great place if you look at other league teams, but they're getting it done. And I actually think there's something to be said for that. I genuinely think there's something to be said for just finding a way to grind out a result. You're making the most of the opportunities you get. Scheif goes franchise leading point scorer, which is amazing. And case in point, absolutely snipes it. Got an opportunity, took the opportunity, and you're 1-0 up. And all of a sudden, you can now play your game, because when the Jets are leading and they find their structure, it just feels like, for me, it's a comfortable place to be. As a sports fan of teams that usually suck. So this is a real treat. So that was amazing, obviously. And then, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about Big Stan getting a goal with an absolute, clapper. It is interesting. He's had a good few games. Half the internet's going wild for the guy. I think the other half are maybe a little bit more grounded. I find myself in the grounded camp. Hey, I'm going to celebrate success. But I'm also just going to be a little bit cautiously optimistic, because I love my optimism. But equally, we've all been burnt by this quite a few times before. So, if he can get 10 games where he's playing really, really solid hockey, then do you know what? When Sandberg's back, put him on the third line. But yeah, I'm still a little bit skeptical. But happy that he's having success, because last year it was just uncomfortable at times. And the guy needs to either learn how to fight or stop taking the fights, because all he does is dance. and it just looks awkward. I think during the game I was messaging a couple of guys and sort of said, it's watching Stan fight is like watching a small child struggle with a puzzle. It's just really uncomfortable to watch. You're sat there being like, oh, please just do something. It's interesting, but like I say, he's having a wedge of success at the moment. So ride the high, enjoy it, and hope it lasts a little longer. So a great week for Jets hockey, like a really, really good week. Some fantastic results, and they're in a position at the moment that I didn't think they'd be in after 5 games, which is 4 wins. So can't complain. I'm really keen to see how we are after 10, 15 games. And I'd love to see Taves and Velarde just get their due. I do feel like they're creating opportunities. They're just not having a lot of luck. So where other guys have snaffled up that luck for shooting percentage purposes, those two just seem to be on the fringe of success, but not quite there. And as Velarde's probably my favourite player, maybe outside of Crosby, but certainly my favourite Jet. Then I want to see him succeed. And who doesn't want Jonathan Taves to be just succeeding in an environment, hometown hero kind of stuff. It's a story that's hard to not get behind. So a really good week for the Jets. And for me personally, how's it been? Well, ups and downs. Not stacks of skating this week. The weight loss stuff has stunted. I'm just struggling with it. I'm finding that I'm struggling with momentum. This is a usual thing for me. I get into some good routines. I kind of struggle then once I plateau. So I need to find a way to shake that up. And the good thing is I'm holding myself accountable by talking about it every week. So I can try and work hard for the next week, bring that number down, and maybe even have a shift in focus and go into just muscle gain instead of weight loss for a bit, just to do something different. But the actual hockey stuff, making baby steps. Had a really good adult learn to play session last Sunday, so a week ago. I've got another one today as I record this Sunday morning. But yeah, last session was great. Skating drills, really enjoyable. Starting to get there, piecing it together very slowly. Certainly trying anyway. Backward skating isn't too scary anymore. I can transition forward to backwards, which is really good. So I'm starting to get involved in more drills. I'm feeling more involved in the whole day, actually. Which is really cool. And then we had a scrimmage at the end, and I actually got involved in a good play. Whoa, I know, scary. It was a breakout play, and it started with me. The puck was in behind the goal line, and I communicated with another chap and just said, that's yours. He picked it up. I turned around. He passed it to me, and then he made a move up the wall, and I backhand passed it to him, probably around about the blue line. So we're breaking out of our own zone. I then push up and skate, and we take 2 or 3 defenders out of the play with this, or 2 or 3 players out of the play with this, which is great. He passes it back to me, and we do this. It's a nice little back and forth, and it sets up an opportunity. They blow the whistle, which means we've got to change lines, and so I have a bit of a cheeky shot towards the goal, like halfway, because no one was there, so just dump the puck in, whatever. And yeah, it was really good. And then got back to the bench, got fist bumps and stick taps and stuff like that, and and I think people are overly kind with me because I am a beginner, but there's some progress there, and I think people appreciate the effort. So I was hugely proud of the effort myself. It was so much. I just love it. I just love this game. It's hard for me to explain. I was again chatting with someone else from Canada or from Manitoba specifically. So they are overly kind, obviously, but we were sort of chatting about it, and they were like, it's so interesting to see an adult have that childlike enthusiasm, because they're raised on hockey over there, and I found it recently, and I've only started playing recently, and so I have this unbridled enthusiasm for getting stuck in, and off the back of that, I've reached out to a couple more rec league teams. Unfortunately, no avail. So one team just I haven't heard anything back from. The other team were really good and sort of let me know really quickly that they were full, but they've got a reserve list for skating opportunities midweek on a Wednesday from 11 till midnight. And then also popped into the rink in Bristol after a public skate and just sort of spoke to the shop guys and just like, I'm just desperate to get involved. And I've been given another opportunity, given the contact details for another opportunity for more training, which is great. So Hopefully going to be going sort of twice a week now, stick and puck sort of stuff, like actual training sessions with some drills and scrimmaging. Now, is that going to make me progress twice as quick? I don't think so, but I'm just desperate to get out there. I'm genuinely desperate to get on the ice as often as possible, particularly with a stick in hand. So, any opportunity I can get, and I'd love to join a rec league team beforehand. I know I'm going to be bottom of the barrel sort of stuff for me personally, but I'm a learn by doing guy, and I'd rather put myself in an uncomfortable situation and have a crack at it, and not succeed and learn and continue to do that until I succeed, than sit around and wait. But yeah, I don't know. I'm as I'm talking to you, I'm beaming because I've got hockey again tonight, and I'm loving throwing myself into this. So, this is the first episode that's looks like it's gone over the half an hour mark. So I should probably wrap this up, since I did say I'd try and keep it short form. In terms of plans for the week, a bit more skating this week, to an extent. I hopefully get a midweek skate in, a public skate in. I mean, I did yesterday, which was really good, actually. Oh yeah, sorry, I'll just touch on this. Stopping has been really hard for me, and at slow speed I've managed to do a proper hockey stop, like leading foot using the inside edge, trailing foot using the outside edge. It was really, really slow and uncomfortable, but it's the first time I've done that, so that's progress. And so I just thought I'd share that, I guess. Again, I'm excited, so I want to share things like that. So week ahead, more work on skating like that. It's probably going to be a long work week, so I don't think I'll be doing too much skating over the weekend. I am, however, off to go and watch Nottingham and Cardiff, which is going to be exciting. So heading out to Cardiff to watch Nottingham play. And I'm going to loiter, hopefully, outside by the bus with my Manitoba Moose cap, with the hope that I can pick up a signature from former Moose player Matt Alfaro. We'll see how we go. It was pretty wishful thinking, but never mind. We'll try. That's going to be it for this episode, because I can feel myself starting to just ramble on. So thanks ever so much for joining me. All the usual stuff, like, subscribe, whatever you're listening to, leave reviews, etc., etc. Always keen to hear your thoughts. Until next time, bye for now.